is former aerospace engineer, U of M. He has a number of battles that he has been fighting and he's fighting now. I think he's an American patriot of the highest order, and I appreciate what Bill Kauffman has been trying to accomplish. He and I have worked together, we've worked separately, but I believe in a lot of the issues he stands for. We disagree on some little things, but I'm going to tell you, the University of Michigan is in bad shape right now. They're in bad shape. Look at their football program. Look at the other issues going on the campus. And I can guarantee you that when Doug Smith and Bill Kauffman, and I did on a few occasions, stood up before the Board of Regents and called these things to their attention, it had an impact. It had an impact, and it still is having an impact. So I know Bill has some things he'd like to share, so Bill, come on. Let's give Bill a real hand of applause and for all that he's done, and for all that he's going to do. And you have to pick questions and answers, so I'll help out with that.
I'm glad we have the Corps here, of reliable people that I would get in the foxhole with and share my .308 ammunition with. I guess you could title this talk Current Events. And, you know, there's no shortage of things going on, although the mainstream media may not report on exactly what's going on. But I spend an increasing amount of the day searching the internet for reliable sources of information. And yeah, there's some things out there. Some people do speak the truth. So I have about 4 big items here that I thought I'd go through. There's a Manufacturing News. It's a newspaper that comes out twice a month, and it talks about industry in America. And it's run by a guy in Arlington, Virginia, who's a straight arrow. And his most recent edition had several interesting things in it. One of them discussed the just released report of the U.S.-China Commission. This is about a dozen wise guys, girls, who sit in Washington and pontificate on when's the dragon going to eat us. Well, their most recent report says we've already been eaten. And we've now jumped to number 2 in the world in terms of total economy. And it just goes down the list of where the Chinese have picked off America. You know, jobs, military technology, etc., etc. And I'm absolutely frustrated as to why hardly anybody is concerned about this. I mean, you know, I started on this campaign maybe in 2004 when I finally realized that they're out there lurking in the bushes. Well, no one really listened and got very excited. And the question is, how bad do things have to get before we perceive the communist Chinese threat? And I guess it's like the frog in the pot of hot water. By the time it gets to boiling, he's realized that it's time to get out of here. But he's been cooked in it. And one of the things that pointed out was, so far this year, we've lost 325,000 jobs to China. But today, right, they announced, oh, we've gotten 325,000 jobs back in December. Probably low-paid clerical jobs at the big box stores selling Chinese goods. And every day now, our trade deficit is $2 billion. And Dan calls me up and he says, hey, the national deficit's hit $17 trillion. Well, I told Dan, I don't think it's my Social Security check that's doing that. When you take $2 billion a day times 365 days a year, you know, that's real money. Okay? And what are we going to have to do? sell off every asset in our country to do this. Now, also in the news this week was Pennsylvania is putting in a major highway intersection between the turnpike and some interstate. And guess who's getting the job? A Chinese construction firm. Okay? And you can read, Governor Snyder came back from China the day before Thanksgiving, apparently because they don't have Thanksgiving in China. And he's talking about all these wonderful opportunities for the Chinese in Michigan. Okay? Well, how about opportunities for Americans, okay, in Michigan? And then the third article in manufacturing news that caught my eye was that America has now lost 2 wars, Afghanistan and Iraq. Okay? And I read today Afghanistan's going to have a record poppy harvest this year, okay, make tons of money off of it. And oh, we're going to try to right the wrongs in Iraq in the near future. But in order to make sure we don't lose any more wars, the Pentagon is undertaking a really big basic research push in the United States. And we're going to train people. Well, our whole scientific technology infrastructure is gone. And it's gone across the Pacific Ocean, okay, because we left them taken. And how are we going to build our science technology infrastructure? Nobody's interested in American farm boys anymore going to the University of Michigan. You know, they don't pay enough. Okay? So I've gone through my back channels on this saying, you know, do you guys really know how you're going to rebuild this infrastructure? Are you going to bring over more Chinese students to do the research? Like John Dingell was always giving grants to the University of Michigan for manufacturing technology. And who did Mary Sue Coleman hire? Chinese graduate students, Chinese faculty members, not Americans. Okay? So manufacturing news should have put China on the front burner, but it probably didn't. Now, in the 7th Congressional District, I could have voted for Wahlberg or Pam Burns. Okay? Both of which are avid panda huggers. Okay? I mean, you talk to either one and they say, oh, you don't understand, China's the future. Tim Wahlberg says, yeah, I'm a free trader. I believe in free trade. You know, I'll trade my wife for a new widescreen TV, you know, if it comes from China. Okay? So our leadership does not understand what's going on, and we're supposed to do something about this. Now, several times I've gone to the 7th District Committee meeting, and recently I wrote an email to the chairwoman of this saying, could I say a few words at the committee meeting about Wahlberg's apathy towards China? And she says, oh, you know, we have many, many busy things to do and, you know, things to discuss, and I just don't think that this would fit in. Well, that was the same day that the Pentagon announced that the Chinese are getting ready to hack our electric grid. Now, maybe where she lives on a farm somewhere out in western whatever, she doesn't need electricity. But hacking the grid is a very serious business. And when we had our 100th anniversary of the Aero Department, one of my students was there, who's now Vice President of General Electric, and I was talking to him about how resistant the grid is and the damage that would be caused to the grid by hacking. He said it would take a decade to rebuild the grid because you could seriously damage turbines when you get emergency shutdowns and stuff and shed the loads. And he says these aren't things that you keep in warehouses. These are things that are custom made, and it would take at least a decade to rebuild the U.S. electrical grid. So apparently the chair of the 7th District Committee doesn't associate Wahlberg's lack of concern with China with her comforts of living with electricity. And I think there's something wrong there. All right, next big item, okay, after the Chinese. I guess you'd have to be living on the far side of the moon not to be aware of the police issue currently going on in our nation. Okay? And what you're finding now is, I think, a willingness of the press, even the mainstream media, to report on police shootings. Okay? So they're more common than we're left on. You've probably seen it. Approximately 1,000 people are shot each year by the police. Okay? And it's not received a lot of attention. Now, let me give you some of my own interactions with the police. About a decade ago, I was stopped for speeding in Dexter. I was going 10 miles over. Okay? And it was cold, and I had on a top coat. And the guy comes up and he says, "I see your license, I see your insurance," or whatever. Well, it's in my wallet. My top coat's down to my knees. So I opened the car door to get out to get my wallet out, and the guy is getting ready to draw his gun. And he says, "I did not order you to get out of that car." He says, "Do you understand I could have blown you away in an instant?" Okay? Now, how many of us know that? Okay? That you can be ready to be knocked off by a cop simply because you're trying to retrieve your driver's license and your insurance. Okay? My second experience with the police was when I was going to go to the Zhuhai Chinese Air Show in 2006, when I was arrested by the campus cops a day before I left and put in handcuffs and drug out of my office because, as the officer said to me, "Sir, we don't want you going to China," because I was going to see things that they had stolen, perhaps through the University of Michigan. Okay? And then, at the beginning of October, end of October, the beginning of November, I went for a walk in the forest on my property, and I go past this tree, and up in the tree is this bow hunter, and he's tree stabbed. I said, "Hey there, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm hunting, can't you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, you're on my property. Did you get my permission?" "Well, I don't need your property because in Michigan we have a right to hunt law." And he says, "If you disturb me, I will prosecute you under my right to hunt law." Okay. And I said, "Well, you really better leave." Okay. He did. Now, these guys are dressed like Rambo. Okay. They have grease paint on their face. They're in a Gilkey suits like snipers wear. And there's no way that you can identify these people. And he says to me, he says, "I'll get you for this. I'm going to call DNR and have you prosecuted under my right to hunt." So I went in the house and I called DNR, 1-800, whatever. And I said, "Hey, there's a tree stand up on my property with a hunter in it." He says, "Well, just climb up a tree and take the tree stand down." You know, I'm 75 years old. Right? Thank you for calling us. We appreciate your interest in DNR. So on Wednesday, at my front door, there's these two uniformed officers, DNR conservation officers there. Bam, bam, bam. And I opened the door and, "Well, what do you want?" "You've interfered with the right of a man to hunt." I said, "Yeah, he was on my property." "Well, how would he know that?" "Well, it's fenced. It has warning signs up. You interfere with you want us to put you in handcuffs and throw you in the back of the car and drag you down to jail?" I said, "Yeah, go ahead." Okay. "Where's your business card?" "I don't have to give you a business card. You can see that I'm an authority in the state." Okay. Well, this is bullcrap. Okay. And I called my lawyer, and I also called my representative, Gretchen Driscoll. And she has now promised for several weeks that we will meet with DNR. But this guy is just a thug, okay, masquerading as a law enforcement official, okay? And I'm not even some poor black guy in Ferguson, Missouri, okay? I'm a retired professor. That should amount for something, okay? So we'll see what DNR has to say about this, okay? Then, along the same line,